board. And we just want to do a quick little summation of how the presidential election works using this nice little infographic. So we'll be getting into the thick of the presidential elections in another year. So the way it begins is you got to go all the way to the Constitution. And whoever runs for president has to meet the requirements. You have to be a natural born citizen. You have to be at least 35 years old. You have to have been a US resident for 14 years. Which you would think if someone was born in the United States, they would automatically meet that. But sometimes people who are born here, maybe their families move overseas and then they come back. So that's why you have the 14-year US residency requirement. And so let's say everybody meets this criteria, and I'm going to predict that we'll have probably 6, 7, 8 Democratic or 6 to 8 Republican candidates for the 2024 election, including Trump. So these people will declare, right? And then they'll campaign. And then it's time to have the state primaries and caucuses. And then each state votes, and after all of the states have voted, then they have the national conventions, right? The Democratic convention, the Republican convention, and it's at these conventions where they choose the final candidate, the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate. And then after the conventions, there's a couple more months of campaigning by those candidates. And then you come around the corner here, and then you have the general election. Remember, the state elections were called primaries. Then we have the general election in the first Thursday in November. And the people vote. But then we have to wait until the Electoral College in January. Technically, the electors are to vote according to how the people in their state voted. And then whoever gets the 270 votes out of 538 out of the Electoral College is the new president. And they will take office on January 20th, around that time. Let's talk about congressional elections, because they are a little different. Now we are coming up to a midterm election. It'll actually be 1 year from next month. So we're 13 months away from a midterm election. And those of you who, I know some of you are about to turn 18. Some of you may already be 18. Some of you may turn 18 within the next 6 months. You should be eligible to vote in the midterm election. And I'm not exactly sure who's going to be coming up for election, but there will be, I think, one of our senators. I think James Lankford is up for re-election, and I'm pretty sure there are some people running against him. He's one of our 2 federal senators, US senators. There will be some people running for the House according to their district. Some things that you're going to hear concerning these elections, you'll hear the word incumbent. Somebody tell me what that is. Who's an incumbent? Anybody know? So in the election with James Lankford, he is the incumbent, which means he is the person who's already in office running for re-election. So you'll hear that term. So-and-so running against incumbent James Lankford. That just means he's the person who's in the office already running for election. Now, incumbents have a little bit of an advantage. And you can see that they typically win at least 60% of the elections. And they have an advantage because they've been in office and they get automatic coverage by the news a lot of times. They already have an account set up from their time that they were elected, and people continue to contribute, so they have a little bit more money usually built up. So incumbents have a huge advantage, and they usually win re-election. Now, congressional elections happen every 2 years. So they happen during a presidential election year, and they happen in between presidential elections. That's the midterm. Now, do you guys remember how many years a representative is in office? Not a senator, but a representative.
Didn't you say some of them could be for life?
They can be for life, but they have to run again. How many? So many. They have to have another election so many years, and they have to run. So, like President Trump became president in 2016, and he could run again in 2020, 4 years later. So, how many years does a representative have to wait until he runs again? But he can be elected as many times as he wants or she wants. But it's 2 years. Every 2 years, they have to once again run for election. Now, for senators, it's every 6 years. So when James Lankford and Jim Inhofe were elected, they had a 6-year term. And now the 6 years is up, I believe, again for Lankford. So he's going to have to run again. But for our representatives, they have to run every 2 years. But once again, unlike the president, there's no term limits. So they could actually be in there for several years. Whereas a president could only have 8 years. The congressional elections can be affected by presidential elections. It's called the coattail effect. If the president is popular for those first 2 years, and let's just use again, well, let's use Biden right now as an example. He's a Democrat. I just saw this morning or last night that his approval ratings are below 40%. If that continues in the next year, then that will have a coattail effect. In other words, Democrats who are running for Congress will not be able to, quote, ride his coattails because he's not being very effective. I'm talking about President Biden. Public opinion about him is pretty low. that will have an effect on the midterm elections for the Democrats. President Trump, his first 2 years, it affected the midterm election in 2018. And during the midterm elections of 2018, the Republicans who had, after 2016, the Republicans had the presidency, and I think they had one of the houses. But in the 2018 election, they lost some seats. So congressional elections can be affected by presidential elections. Whereas most likely what's going on in Congress will not affect a presidential election. Presidential elections are the only national elections. Congress, members of Congress are voted in by their state citizens, but the president is voted in by the national citizenry. All right, any questions on the congressional elections? Oh, I don't have a slide on it, but it's in your textbook. We just had a census last year, right? 2020 census. And I'm sure many of your parents filled out their census. There are several reasons we have those censuses, but one of the reasons is after the census is done, states will then realign their districts based on population. So right now, for example, Oklahoma has 5 congressional districts, and therefore we have 5 US representatives, 1 from each district. California has 55 districts based on their population. So they get 55 representatives. All right, this is the bicameral Senate coming into play here. Every state gets 2 senators, so they're on equal terms in the Senate, but then each state in the House of Representatives gets as many, gets the amount of reps that is based on their population. So every 10 years we take a census, and redistricting takes place in each state based on how the population has changed. Excuse me. I'm wanting to say 20 years ago, and it may have been 30 years ago. It might have been from the 1990 to the 2000 time period, decade, when Oklahoma had 6 representatives. And then with the 2000 census, things were changed up where apparently our population decreased enough to where we were re-regulated to 5 representatives. Let me bring up the let me bring up a map of our districts. All righty, let me bring this up. Okay, if you guys will look there, There's our 5 districts. Now notice you and I are in this light blue district. It goes from the northern border with Kansas all the way down to Texas. It encapsulates the whole eastern border with Missouri and Arkansas. And then you can see at the top, it goes all the way to the Tulsa area. And then once you get south of Tulsa, it goes almost to Shawnee. That's a big area. An even bigger area is this area all the way to the west, including the Panhandle and the western border with Texas, Panhandle. And it goes all the way to the Tulsa area at the top. And you can see it just kind of diagonals down to the Oklahoma City area and then to the Lawton area. Why? And then you got the 3 littler districts. Why is it like this? Because it's based on population. All 5 districts have about 9. No, that's not right. All 5 districts have about 700,000 people in them. Multiply that times 5 and you get our state population of about 3.5 billion. Every district in a congressional district has to have about the same amount of people. So these are the 2 smallest areas, but they have the 2 biggest cities, Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And then the next smallest has Norman, Lawton, Duncan, Chickasha, and Moore. And then the 2 outlying districts, there are some good sized cities like Enid and McAllister and Muskogee, but the population in these 2 areas, including ours, is about the same as these 3 smaller districts. So that's where our 5 reps are coming from. So you can see that the 2 reps in District 2 and 3, whenever they campaign, they have to cover a lot more area. But anyway, that's how our 5 districts are divided. Now, another term you'll see in the textbook is gerrymandering, named after a U.S. rep many years ago named, well, his last name was Gerrymand. I can't remember his first name, but anyway, gerrymandering is a term that, let me bring that up again. Gerrymandering is something that that is not looked upon as a good thing. What happens is a lot of times whoever has the majority in the, let's talk about the Oklahoma state government. Whoever has the majority in the House or in Congress, when it comes time to redistrict the state, since Republicans are in charge, they would draw up the districts so that it favors Republicans. It's not really a fair thing to do, but that's what gerrymandering is. I just wanted to mention it. It's not going to be on the test. You don't hear a lot about it today anymore. But any questions on the congressional elections? Let's just see very quickly. let's see who's running in 2022 for Oklahoma. I am going to a website which you guys can easily access called Ballotpedia. And I've brought up Oklahoma elections 2022. So for example, you can see the races that will be run are in blue. You can click on them. They have a check mark by them. So let's see if anybody's running against Stitt yet in 2022 for governor. So here we go. We've got a Natalie Bruno. That L means libertarian. We have a Paul Tay, who's an independent. We do have a Democrat running in the primary named Constance Johnson. And oh, it looks like there will be a Republican that will want to run against Stitt named Irvin Yen. Now, you want to learn about these people? Click on them. Let's see about Natalie Bruno. And here you can learn Natalie Bruno, libertarian. She is in the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association, which makes sense. If you're a libertarian, you want more personal freedom than even Republicans. She says she's a Christian. Tells you what her job is. If you want to go to her campaign website, you click right there. Natalie Bruno for governor. She's going to fight to unite Oklahoma. Sounds like she might have been a fan of the old 80s band. I think it's the Beastie Boys. You got to fight for your right to party. She's going to fight to unite Oklahoma. What are her top issues? Let's see here. Constitution, tribes, mandates, abortion, healthcare, cannabis. Let's see what her view is on cannabis. I'm going to guess that she wants marijuana to be legal on the recreational level. Yep. Oklahomans have the right to produce and consume cannabis, whether recreational, medical, or industrial. So again, if you want to see, you guys that are 18 or are going to turn 18, you want to bookmark Ballotpedia. And I'm sure there's some other websites where you can learn about the candidates. You can even see the election results from 2020 or 2018, sorry. Kevin Stitt beat Mick Cornett. I could not believe that. I thought Mick had it for sure. But anyway, let's move on to conventions. Now, how many of you are in FFA and you might go to the National FFA Convention or the state convention? How about FFA? Do they still call it FHA or is it FCC, LJPTBA or something like that? It used to be Future Homemakers of America, FHA. Sometimes it's called
I think it's like FCCLA.
FCCLA, okay. Anybody going to that convention? What's up, dude? So Yeah. Hey, again. So anyway, they have political conventions. And I believe we do have state conventions. But then once the candidates are picked from each state, like I said, we have a national convention. Each state sends representatives or delegates to the convention who can vote. Now, if you're not a delegate, you can still go to the convention. You can take your banners and your little noisemakers and cheer and yell and scream and be a part of it. But you have to be a delegate to be able to vote. And it's during the conventions where they give all these speeches. They talk about their platform. You guys know what a party platform is? A party platform is basically the issues that they focus on. Once again, I'm going to Ballotpedia. To show you what the Republican Party platform is. Now, this was for 2020, so this would have been the platform that Trump was running on. His platform, here's what he said about jobs. Create 10 million new jobs in 10 months. Then there's a section on get rid of COVID-19. Then one of the things that Trump ran on was we're going to end our reliance on China. Healthcare platform, education, drain the swamp. That's just a way to say get rid of all the excess stuff in Washington, D.C. Another platform, another piece of the platform was defend our police. All right. So that's the Republican Party platform. Let's see what the Democrats' platform was in 2020. Platform, platform, platform. Where are you? Platform. All righty, the Democratic platform. Theirs looks nice and jazzier, doesn't it? Raise incomes and restore economic security for the middle class. Create good paying jobs. Fight for economic fairness and against inequality. Bring Americans together and remove barriers to opportunities. Protect voting rights and fix our campaign finance system. Combat climate change. Provide quality and affordable education. Right? We heard a lot about that. Make college education free. Ensure the health and safety of all Americans. Support our troops and keep faith with our veterans. Confront global threats. So you can go to Ballotpedia too and find party platforms. Those are the issues that the parties decide upon at the conventions. All righty, let's finish up with the types of ways that presidents campaign, the methods. And this is all a part of a campaign strategy. Sorry. First of all, in a campaign, the leader or the person running has to put together a campaign team. And these few diagrams, these are not exactly what they have to follow, but this just kind of shows the team members that you want to have on your campaign team. Someone to do finances, someone to take care of polling, someone to lead your campaign on the ground, that is going door to door, getting out in communities. And then on your campaign team, you need somebody to manage your volunteers, someone who's going to be the person to communicate externally, that is, communicate with the press, put things in the newspaper, put things on social media, right? And I guess they have that even divided. Someone to take care of the online stuff and someone else to take care of newspapers, television ads, things like that. Now, you'll hear the word strategist when it comes to campaign, election campaigns. Whoever's running for an office, they do not run their campaign. They get a expert strategist, someone who's the manager. And you have to have someone who's the treasurer over the money, someone who's over media relations. This is just another way to diagram all this. So you have professional experts, you get consultants, you have volunteers. You have to raise money for a campaign. I had a high school teacher who was a coach, and a lot of times coaches who are high school history teachers get a bad rap. What's up, Ratan? And my high school history teacher, even though he was a coach, said something that's very true. You guys need to remember this. What makes the world go round? What is it that makes the world go round? And I'm not talking about the sun's orbit or the moon's tides or the moon's gravitational pull. Money. Money is what makes the world turn around, go around. So you have to have money for a campaign. I want to show you this guy who campaigned in 2016, and we'll close. One of the presidential candidates was Vermin Supreme of New Hampshire. He's the guy who wore a rubber boot on his head. Yes, he really ran. He said if he was elected, every American would get a pony. And he had a plan to defeat ISIS. And that plan was to go back in time with time travel. His campaign was, let him run your life because he knows what's best for you. Vote for Vermin Supreme, President of the USA, Overlord of planet Earth. Everybody gets a pony, and he was going to stop the zombie apocalypse and use zombies to power the future. Yes, he really ran for president. I don't think he won even his state in New Hampshire, but anyway,
We will not be here Monday, not Monday, I meant Wednesday. So, do you want us to still like log in and,
so you guys have fall break Wednesday?
yep,
What about Rattan?
Yeah, we do too.
Okay, so we're done for the week.
let's go. My bad.
What I will do is I will record chapter 11 lecture and you can watch it before next Monday at your own time.
What did you do, Jonathan?
So have a great week
You too.
and may the force be with you.